Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Today we're going to embark on a new series, yes, another one, and it's about scrapping. I haven't done a lot of scrapping videos for a while, and I apologise for all you scrappers that have subscribed and have been bombarded with repair videos and pickers videos and worm test videos, although I haven't done any of those for a while. I want to keep my channel fairly active across a broad range of recycling, and I'm going to do a series on scrapping, and I'll concentrate on this a fair bit, and it's going to be called the Deca scrapping series. Now Deca is a prefix for 10, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up all sorts of items. I've got microwaves here, I've got printers, I've got all sorts of odd things. I can see fax machines, and at the moment I have these little power packs, wall warts. So we're going to select 10 of these at random, and we'll go through and scrap them out and see where the value is, see what dollars can be made. The whole thing is about recycling. Most scrappers understand it's not only the thrill of making some money out of other people's waste, but it's also very satisfying to keep a lot of stuff out of landfill and direct precious materials back into the circular economy, and it's not thrown to the landfill. So everyone sees these all the time. You've probably got at least a dozen in your house. They're known as wall warts, power packs, power supplies. They come in two main different types, and we're going to look at these transformer ones. These are the heavier ones. You do have to be aware that the other ones, which are switch mode power supplies, I've knocked one apart here, and they have a little power board. They don't have a main transformer as compared to a little one here that does have a mains transformer. So that's not a switch mode power supply. This one is. We'll do a series or a test on these ones as well soon. Today we're looking at these wall warts or power packs that have a nice chunky transformer, and we want to see what value is in them. Are they worth scrapping? Are they worth picking up if you see them out on the street? And we'll just investigate every possibility, and I'll take my time into account, and so you guys can make your own decisions what you want to do with these things. Now I should have mentioned that it's easy to pick one of these transformer type power packs from a switch mode power supply, because these ones are super light. They actually feel like they're empty. They've only got a little power board in there, as you saw from the other one, whereas these have a nice laminated chunky transformer. So with that in mind, what are we going to do with these? Well, the first option, if you have any way of selling it, sell it. That's by far the best price option. It's probably the best form of recycling, is to keep things in use. If they're in good condition and they work fine, consider selling it. Obviously some things are hard to sell because postage is an issue if you try to eBay it, but it could be repurposed and you might run some Bud lights or something off it, some LED lights. So that's your first option. But anyway, this is a scrapping video, so we're going to look at these from a scrap perspective. Here's 10 of them. I've randomly selected. I've cut the cords off them because every scrapper knows that insulated copper wire pays pretty well, so there's no decision to be made there. But the decision is, what do you do with these things? Are they worth scrapping? Are they worth picking up from the side of the road if you see them out street scrapping? What value can they be? Let's have a look. Well, first thing, these weigh about 3 kilos, the 10 of them. If your scrapyard happens to take these as transformers, that would be awesome. They're paying about $1 a kilo at the moment for transformers, so that would equal about $3. I don't think most of them do. In fact, let me know underneath if your scrapyard does, because I think if it does, that would be your best option straight up. But most scrapyards would only allow you maybe to throw them in dirty shred because there's a fair bit of steel in them, and they're only going to pay about 20 cents a kilo. So that would be option number one as far as this scrapping video goes. Don't waste any time, throw them in with the dirty shred and get 20 cents a kilo. Let's get the notepad out. Okay, for want of another name, I've called these wall warts the transformer type. So our option one would be to sell them as dirty shred, and shred just really indicates steel. Usually light gauge steel, and quite often they'll accept quite a bit of contamination. We have 3 kilos at 20 cents at the moment, roughly. which is going to be 60 cents. So not very much, but much better than throwing them out. Option 2 would be to actually turn these into transformers to sell and get our $1 a kilo, which is currently what's on offer. So a little bit of labour involved this time. We're going to break them open, and option 2 will just be purely ripping the transformer out as quick as we can and seeing if the extra money is worth the labour. Okay, my specialised transformer removal tools here, a piece of railway track and my favourite little mash hammer. I know some of you guys use brick hammers, whatever your preferred tool of destruction is. I do find that an anvil or a railway track piece or something very solid helps, even the concrete floor of your workshop, because you need the impact to go through here, not vibrate down through a wonky table. So a good decent heavy base to hit on really does help. So I'm going to do this one. I'll just move these scales out of the road. I'm going to do this one to show you what's involved, and then I'll time myself doing the rest of the 10, and we can work out if there's value in knocking them apart and getting the transformers out. So most of them have a seam, some of them have security screws, which doesn't really matter, they'll still break open with a decent clout, and they're pretty quick to get into. So all I'm going to do is break these open and get the transformer out, and I'll keep an eye on the clock. I'll just do this one first. Some of them take a bit more than others. There we go, we've got into that straight away. The transformer should come out. That's all there is to it. I'll break the little board off it. All the board is a rectifier, 4 diodes and a little smoothing capacitor. And I'll do that with all 10, and I'll time myself and we'll see where we get to. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all done, and it took us just under 3 minutes. We'll say 3 minutes to get those out. So there's our little transformers. The weight is 2.5 kilos, so you can see there was only half a kilo of plastic and other bits. Most of the weight is in these. They're actually a laminated steel around the copper coils, so they are fairly dense. So, for 3 minutes, did we make much money for our time? Let's work it out on an hourly rate. Now this will be option 2. We're not selling them as dirty thread, we're smashing the transformers out. So transformers, there'll be no doubt that we'll be able to sell them as transformers because that's what they are. 2.5 kilos at about $1 at the moment. It's $2.50. Now, we did that in about 3 minutes, a whisker under. There's, you can really whip through these pretty quickly. Let's see how that works out on an approximate hourly rate. There's 23s in an hour. 20 times 3 minutes make an hour. So we'll do 20 times our $2.50 is going to give us $50. That's a pretty good hourly rate. So if you can belt these apart really quickly, you're going to get good value, a hell of a lot better than 60 cents for shred. So that's a good option, I think. There we go. So that little group is $2.50 worth of transformers. What have we got left? Well, we've got these plastic casings that will have to be rubbish. And these ones have the pins and a bit of wire, and there's also the little boards, the little rectifier boards that I broke off for transformers. You possibly might be able to get away with leaving them on the transformers. It depends how fussy your scrapyard is, but they won't make a huge difference to the weight anyway. So we'll look at processing those next, but as far as this stage goes, with minimal time, we could turn these wall warts or power packs into quite a valuable commodity, and we could probably just dump all that in the e-waste recycling section at your transfer station or something if you didn't want to deal with it. So that would be option 2. Option 3, we'll write down here, option 3 will be to spend some time and seeing if we can micro scrap these and get the brass pins and the copper wire. Okay, now we're going to get these brass pins out of here. Some of them come out easily, some don't. We'll snip all the wires out first, and some of these will actually punch through. Sometimes they come out nice and clean, like that one. Other times they have lumps of plastic on them, which are a bit hard to remove. Sometimes there's a big lump of solder. You don't want too much contamination, or the scrapyard's not going to give you a good brass price. So we'll go through these and trim up the plastic as best we can. Oh, that's a tough one. There we go. So I'll go through these ones. I'll keep an eye on the time and see how long it takes me. Sometimes they just won't push through easily, and it's probably just easy to twist them and break them off. If you're going to do this, you do need to also take the black plastic sleeves off them, because the scrapyards won't like too much of that on, and that can take a bit of time. They're very fiddly, some of them. Alright, I'll just clean up the wire off these little rectifier boards. Not really much wire. Alright, there's still a few with little black sleeves on them, plastic sleeves. They are fiddly to get clean, and it does take time. Alright, we'll sort them out and weigh them. Okay, there's our little pile of insulated copper wire and our reasonably clean brass pins. That effort took us about 6 minutes, about twice as long as what it took to get the transformers out of the boxes. We have a small pile here of just the little boards, the rectifier boards. There's no value in here for scrappers. There's just diodes and some small capacitors. That will go into my bucket to go to the e-waste at the transfer station. And we have added to our pile of plastic here. Now, if you live in a city, it may be recyclable. I can't out here in the country, and you certainly can't put it in our curbside recycling bins. So unfortunately, that will have to go in the bin. So let's weigh up our little piles here and see what value we got for our 6 minutes. Now, just before I go to the next stage, these are all brass. Some people call them white brass, but they are just nickel plated. Now, don't be fooled if you try a magnet on them. Don't be fooled that sometimes they will be slightly magnetic. See, that one's actually hanging off. Whoops, that's actually stuck to the magnet. So that doesn't mean they're stainless, and it doesn't mean that they're not brass. You just got to remember that nickel actually is magnetic. So if it's a thick nickel plating, you will get a slight magnetic attraction. It can be confusing if you use a very powerful magnet like a neodymium magnet from a hard drive. Probably better just to check them with a basic microwave magnet, because that's not powerful enough to pick anything up there. So they are all brass. We'll weigh those up and see what value there is. I've had to use my smaller scales because there's not a lot of weight there. So that is about 40 grams. So 40 grams of brass. Where's my pen? So option 3, we've got brass. We've got 40 grams, so 0.04 kilos at about $7 a kilo at the moment. Very good prices for scrap at the moment. That's going to come down, I just checked my calculator, it's coming down to 28 cents. So not much brass. Let's weigh up the wire. It's probably going to be less. Much less. Not only less in weight, we have about 10 grams, but it doesn't pay as well either. So our insulated wire is 0.01 kilograms. This is really micro scrapping at about $4 a kilo for insulated wire at the moment. And that's excellent. Of course, it needs to be no plugs. It needs to be, I think, minimum 43% copper. Some of that stuff might be a little bit fine. That's going to work out at, what's that, 4 cents. So for our 6 minutes of labour, we've made 32 cents. Let's extrapolate that out to a labour rate. We have 10 sixes in 60, so 10 by 0.32 gives us an hourly rate of $3.20 to micro scrap those little power packs. So whilst it was pretty exciting having $50 an hour for the first stage, this micro scrapping stage, $3.20 per hour. We'll add per hour so I remember. So you guys will make up your own mind whether it's worth it. It's pretty clear to me. The next stage, let's go to option 4, or stage 4. What have we got left? Well, there's no value in those, but we have got our transformers. Here we are. We can micro scrap these and get the copper wire out. Now, is that going to be viable? I think I know, but we're going to do it anyway. So we'll get our mash hammer ready and a few tools, and we'll strip the copper wire out of all those transformers. Now, to get these things apart, they've got laminations, and they've got an E-shaped one, and then they've got an I-shaped one, and they alternate. And then once they're all pressed together, and they're in there pretty tight, they then coat them with like a lacquer or something. I think there's one of these shows it a bit better. So they're kind of stuck together. So to get them apart, really we've just got to belt them around a bit, and the laminations will gradually start to come out. Now, it's quite time consuming, so I'll do one and then I'll spend the rest of the time doing the other 10, and we'll see what we get return for our time on this stage. So I'm going to just hit this, and I'll hit it on a bit of an angle, and it'll cause the laminations to move around a bit, and it should break the lacquer seal. Yeah, that's moved it around a bit. So now we need to prise our way in and once we get the first couple out, they tend to come out fairly well. You really don't want to stick a screwdriver through your finger at this stage. And we'll try the side cutters if we can get on there. Okay, that one's coming. You can see that they take a bit to get going. You might try these. And I probably should have gloves on because these laminations can be quite sharp. So there's the E one and the I, and that then encases the coil. So we'll get a few more out. They'll still be a bit tight for a little while, and then the rest will kind of fall out once we hit it a few times. So they're coming out easier now. So we'll free them all up. And usually they just start to fall apart. It depends how much lacquer's on them. So it's got most of the eyes out. Okay. The more you get out, the looser it gets. And of course, all these plates can go in our shred steel. Still tight on a couple of them. how they normally get easier. This one's putting up a bit of a fight, but I think that's pretty standard for these things. They don't want to come apart. Depends how much lacquer's on them, as I said before. So there we go. Now this coil of copper is encased in a plastic. It should break out easily enough. They're all different constructions, these transformers, and they all vary a little bit. It's got tape around it as well. So you can see the coils there now. We'll try and break the center section out. At last we're seeing some copper. Okay, one coil off. There's our second coil. Transformers always, well, these ones always have finer wire on one side and thicker wire on the other. Now, sometimes, I haven't mentioned it yet, but sometimes you can find these transformers with aluminium wire rather than copper, which is most disappointing. And the more modern transformers you've got, the more likelihood it is. Hopefully we'll check these ones at the end and make sure they're all copper. But I think the fact that some can be aluminium also weighs towards which way you should jump as far as a decision goes. Right, let's get the insulation off there. One nice little spool of copper, and the other one sometimes they don't have tape. This is very strong tape. And there's the other little spool of copper. So that took us 5 minutes just for one transformer. Some of them are quicker than this, granted, and the more you do, the quicker you'd probably get at them, but it is particularly hard on the hands, and there's always a chance that you can jab yourself with a screwdriver. Anyway, I'll watch the time, I'll do the rest of them, and we'll work out our hourly rate. Well, it's the next morning. I've finished this job off. It took a lot longer than I expected. Very fiddly, very hard on the hands. We've got a huge pile of the E's and the I's here, which will weigh up for shred. We've added to our pile of general rubbish, and we've got a little pile of copper. Now, I've just checked them with the file just to make sure they're not aluminium windings, and they're all copper, so that's good. Some of the bigger transformers are certainly aluminium wire, so you need to, probably best to try and check them before you pull them apart, but it is a bit awkward. Anyway, it's getting a bit windy out here, so we'll weigh these up quickly and we'll move inside and just do a conclusion. Our copper weighs out at 0.4 of a kilo, about 410 grams. We'll go and jot that down in a minute, and we better weigh this up. And there's our big pile of shred, and it weighs out pretty well exactly 2 kilograms. So I'm just going to put that in a microwave body or something to go as general pressing steel. But we'll go inside now and we'll just do the final figures, and we'll work out the pros and cons of which stages are the best. Okay guys, I'm in my home workshop now. We'll finalise this video. The weather's got pretty nasty outside and we're supposed to be getting storms tonight. So, the conclusion, as you saw, the transformers took quite a lot to micro scrap, and my hunch at the start, well, it was a bit more than a hunch, was that it wasn't worth it, but we got to do it to show you the facts and figures, and then you can make up your own mind. So the copper wire, which will go as burnt copper or number 2 copper wire, because it is insulated, it's not it's actually got a lacquer on it, so it's not number 1 or Milbury copper, but the price is still very good. However, we didn't really get enough to make it viable. We had 410 grams, so 0.41 kilos at about $10 a kilo now, which is excellent. So that gives us $4.10. And the steel, just the shred steel, weighed out at 2 kilos, as you saw, at 20 cents is 40 cents, 0.4, that gives us $4.50 return. Now the time, I said it took a long time, it did. I actually spent over an hour doing all these transformers. The first one was about 5 minutes, some of the others took quite a bit longer. So let's just work on an hour, but it actually did take a bit longer. And my hands are actually quite sore today. Not that I stabbed myself, I actually got out of it pretty well. But just all the constant twiddling and pulling and levering, and my fingers are actually a bit sore. So apart from all that, the hourly rate would be working out at 1 hour. As I said, it was a bit longer than that, but basically $4.50 per hour. But remember that we, as transformers, we already had $2.50 in value. So we've now got $4.50. So all we've actually made is $2 per hour. So that makes it even less viable. So there we go. That's the conclusions I'm drawing from this video. If you don't have the time, or you just simply don't want to muck around processing anything, you can throw them in the dirty shred. You'll get some return. It's certainly worth, in my view, smashing transformers out of the plastic cases. $50 an hour is a pretty good labour rate these days. And once you're set up, you could probably even do them a little bit quicker than that. To microscrap the brass and insulated wire, I wouldn't even consider it. Maybe you could leave a little bit of the rectifier board and maybe some of the wires on the transformers to get a little bit of extra value there. Now to get the copper wire out of the transformers, $2 an hour, I don't think so. Remembering that this is while prices are good. Price of scrap now is really good. If prices are in the doldrums, this is even less viable. So, and if you happen to get a group of transformers that are aluminium windings, no good at all. So that's where I'm at with these. I've called this my Deca Scrap series. We've got 10 by Woolworths in this one. We might look at comparing the switch mode power supplies. Just that'll be a quicker video because there's not much to do in them. We might look at microwave transformers. Any other components you want me to do micro scrapping on and do this sort of formula on, let me know underneath. But as far as these power backs go, smash your transformers out of the plastic cases, and that's the end of it. So that concludes our first Deca scrap. Hope you got something out of that. I would love some feedback on this series, whether you think it's a good idea or not. I aim to give a really comprehensive look at scrapping anything. I've just got to acquire 10 of them before I do it. I've already got stacks of printers and microwaves, and I've nearly got, I mentioned at the start, I've nearly got 10 washing machines. Whatever I find, electronics, appliances, anything that can be scrapped, it doesn't even have to be electrical. I think I've put some old style aluminium fold-up chairs aside. When I get 10 of those, we'll see what it's worth, see if it's worth spending time on. So the videos themselves should be applicable for whenever you watch them. It's just that the prices may not. But if I note my time and the weights, you pretty well can transpose your own prices onto them and make your own decisions. So hopefully this comprehensive series will give beginner scrappers some idea of where the value is. It might encourage some of you more experienced scrappers to perhaps realise that where you've been putting in some of your effort isn't perhaps the best way. It's teaching me. So thanks for watching, guys. Give me some feedback on it. I think it's a good idea, but you know, it depends what you guys want to watch. So thanks for watching this. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.